Welcome to the Board of Trustees meeting. Member of the audience, you are invited to address the board on any subject on tonight's agenda when the item is being addressed. To help the board conduct their meetings efficiently, the board asks that if you wish to address the board tonight, you complete a speaker's card. Present the card to the board clerk prior to them being discussed by the board. Wait to be called upon to speak. Come to the podium and state your name. Individual speakers shall be allowed 3 minutes to address the board on each agenda item. The board shall limit the total time for public input on each item to 15 minutes. With the board consent, the president may increase or decrease the time allowed for public presentation depending on the topic and the number of persons wishing to be heard. The president may take a poll of speakers for or against a particular issue and may ask that additional persons speak only if they have something new to add. The district's previous system for recording board meetings recently failed and needed to be replaced. The new system is now in place, allowing us to video record our meetings. In light of this change, I want to read from our existing board bylaw 99324. Meetings and recordings. The district may take, film, or broadcast any open board meeting. The board president shall announce that the recording or broadcast is being made at the direction of the board at the beginning of the meeting, and as practicable, the recorder or camera shall be placed in plain view of the meeting participants, which is the podium or the stand that's right there in the middle. So I just wanted to, so that everybody knew that it was being recorded in a different fashion. And this is the way we will be doing it from this point forward. So I want to call the meeting to order. If we could please have a roll call.
Michael Owen.
Here.
Peter Hernandez. Elizabeth Martinez.
Here.
Tricia Moore.
Yes, sir.
Elsa Rodriguez.
Here.
Morning absent.
We can please stand to do the flag salute. Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I made it.
We're on item 4, approval of the agenda. If I could get a motion to approve the agenda.
Motion to approve.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Item 5A, Hollister School District Successor Contract Proposal for 2016-17 for HESTA. Dr. Fritz? Would we like Dr. Fritz to make a presentation or listen to public comments?
Presentation first.
Me first.
Yes, sir.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the board. This item is the annual, pretty much, sunshine of the district's proposal to begin collective bargaining process with the teachers union, HESTA. And it is an item that needs to be put out in the public so that the public can see what it is that the district is proposing. It's quite detailed. It represents our starting position. And I'm bringing it to you tonight for your approval so that we can begin negotiations. If you approve this tonight, then I will schedule some meetings tomorrow with the teachers union and we'll get started.
We have two speakers. One is Jan Chris.
Jan Chris?
Come.
Okay.
Come.
The first night, we'll get the makeup stuff later.
Hi, I'm Jan Grist. Happy Groundhog Day. My mom was born in Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania, so we've always kind of had a little laugh about Groundhog Day in the family. I come here tonight to have you thoroughly look at the district's sunshine to HESTA very carefully. Under the guise of the LCAP funding and services and the extra things that are required, the district wants us to work an extra 2.5 days, because that's what 30 minutes a day, 180 days, and that's what it comes out to be, is 2.5 days. If the district wants to increase our work minutes that equal to 2.5 days, then the obvious response should be pay the teachers for the 2.5 days on the salaried schedule. This kind of, no. It's 2.5 days. No?
30, maybe 2.5 days in a week, but not in a year. 30 minutes a day for 9 hours, 6 days.
Okay. I guess I'm wrong on my math. That's why I teach history. I always tell my students I make mistakes all the time, so don't worry about making a mistake in my classroom. This is why. So this kind of hocus pocus of reasons of why we should not be paid our fair wage is really ludicrous. What this sunshine fails to mention is the 11% pay cut we took. Another observation that the sunshine does not address is teacher shortage. That every school district is facing in California. The enrollment in teacher certificate training classes has declined due to the problems in job security and low pay. At present, Gilroy pays $10,000 more per year than HSD. We must be competitive to attract qualified teachers. Having an 8-hour workday will single our district out among the other local districts in a negative way. For the district to come up with some mumbo jumbo formula on why it's okay not to pay us for our full amount of salary, it just doesn't make sense. We must pay teachers fairly and frankly generously, since we could possibly have the longest workday in the Central Coast and the Bay Area. Another consequence of working a longer day is in our middle schools. We already have one of the longest minutes in the state of California. I just have a little paragraph left. There is a saying that less is more. When dealing with children, we need to concentrate on pinpoint instruction that keeps students focused. More minutes is not in a workday is no panacea to guarantee student achievement.
Good evening, Dr. McIntyre. Congratulations as superintendent for the region and the board members. Thank you for being here. Members in the audience. And Jan, thank you for your comments. I wish I had known I was going to be filmed. I might have shaved. But regardless, I agree with Jan 100%. If you're asking us to work more hours, and we are working more hours than required by the state, you know, and one way of thinking about it, I'd say, well, let's roll back our hours that we have to teach to what is the state required minimum. And then if you want us to work more than that, then pay us the difference. However, I realize that we probably can't do that. We already have our instructional minutes in the contract, but you're asking us to work another 30 minutes a day for 186 days, which is 93 hours. I'm an hourly worker, at least in terms of my extra time. I do not want to be paid the district hourly rate. I want to be paid my fair rate, which is my per diem.
By the way, thank you, Jack.
I could get a motion to approve the Hollister School District successor contract proposal for 2016-17 for HESTA.
I'll make a motion to approve.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Right.
Really?
And you realize this is a proposal,
We don't have any speaker.
and you need to talk amongst yourselves and your union representatives who will be in the negotiation process. So the communication before it gets to us needs to take place among yourselves. Am I correct?
Next item?
Yes.
Yes.
Next item.
The second, 5B, is a similar proposal regarding CSEA. Again, this is the initial proposal that the district would sunshine to allow for public input and also to start the public not public, but the negotiation collective bargaining process. So again, I'm asking the board for approval for this initial proposal, this sunshine. And if approved, then I will be moving tomorrow to set up meetings with CSEA to negotiate with them.
I have a question. I might be wrong, but I don't remember talking about this. I was communicating with Gary, but I don't remember talking about CSEA. I said, I don't remember talking about the CSEA portion, and maybe it was intermixed, maybe it was considering both when the conversations were happening, that's why I missed it. But it was my understanding that closed session was talking about just testing.
My understanding was what was presented in closed session was everyone.
It wasn't on the board,
It was
the,
a
you know,
proposal
the percentages and things that.
Yeah. No, yeah,
They
and
were
I agree,
evaluating.
that was, but all I thought it was just not testing.
It was the starting point for all, for both units.
So, I mean, if you guys want to vote on it, my own conscience, that's where my mind was when I was in closed session, so I can't.
I would like to remind everybody, we're not negotiators. We don't do the negotiating here. We wait, hear what you guys have to say, and when the contract is brought to us, that's all we do. We're not the negotiating team. And
They don't have to approve it. We don't have to approve it.
Their proposals.
we're,
Right, but you still don't have to approve the proposal.
Well,
we're
it's a
approving the
starting point.
negotiations.
It's
the
the
start
start,
of
the start of,
negotiations.
the start of negotiations. You know, it's just like any debate that you start, you're gonna, you have a level that you're gonna start at, and then you can work from there.
We understand that, but it's kind of a bogus starting point, and you have the ability to say, this is not right. The starting point is not right. We don't want to approve this starting point, Mr. Kurtz, because this is basically slapping us in the face. And we're not happy about it.
Right, but the board meeting is not really for us to debate this in public, because that's what negotiations is. And so that gives your the opportunity for your negotiating team to come in with whatever background they have to debate the issue at hand. It's not for us to sit here and debate that in public with
And
you
there's
right
so
now.
much more than
I do understand what you're saying.
I do need to point out, we're out of order.
We are.
The item is completed, we're moving on to item number 5C.
Yes, sir.
So at this point,
Or 5B.
yes, so we do have the proposal for CSEAs. So
You guys could vote, I'll just.
We accept the proposal.
So your question is you just didn't understand, so,
So in my own conscience, I really wouldn't feel comfortable
okay,
voting yes.
all right. So do we have a motion?
We have to
Not for this one.
Oh.
Yeah. They're on. For the AAA. So if we have a motion to accept the Hollister School District successor contract proposal for 2016-17 for CSEA.
I'll motion to approve.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Abstain? Thank you.
Thank you.
5C
Thanks,
is
Dennis.
round 5C recommendation for the relocation of the Accelerated Achievement Academy to Margaret Mays Middle School for the 2016-17 school year.
I hope so. What if we should move on to the next agenda? Because I remember he has, he's got a presentation. Yeah, see if I can get a hold.
He's walking over now.
Is where?
They've already.
Walking over.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh.
You might. So I wonder if we could accept public comment. If he's on his way.
Jen, Chris?
I came up before the board, was that in December? And I spoke, and I just really, you know, the more I think about it, we need to think about these AAA students. We've got, it said over 2,800 new homes are being built right now. We're not really sure how that's going to affect the growth of each school. And it would be horrible if we move them to Mays and then we realize, well, all the homes here around Mays, where are we going to put them next? You know, we've done that traditionally with our 6th grade. They've been like the black sheep of the family. Since I've been employed in this school district, I have seen 6th grade move 4 times. And it costs money, we lose materials, and frankly, the 6th grade teachers don't feel like they have a home. We really need to think this out because, you know, all of us are here for one reason, the children. And it would be lousy to have them move and then have them move again. So that's my 2 cents there.
Thank you, Jen.
Hi, everyone. My name is Dee Slykus, and I'm actually from the Accelerated Achievement Academy. I am the vice president on the board, and I came today to speak on behalf of some other parents and To be honest with you, at first, a lot of us were very excited about going to Mays. We're looking into a good opportunity to expand, and also I heard that they had science labs and computer labs. But at this time, from what I'm hearing, and with it being temp, I don't feel that it is the right time for us to be relocating. I do not think it's fair to the kids to be going to another school that's not going to be able to provide their needs. We have to consider that you're talking about 4th and 5th grade as well. So you're going to be entwining them with middle schoolers. And I'm scared that they are going to be bullied. I'm not saying that Mays is a place that can happen, but we have to take in consideration the younger age. And that's a lot of parents' concerns. I feel that where we're at right now is best where we would stay for now until you guys can figure out exactly where we belong. We are comfortable there. The children are comfortable there. There is room for there to put portables more and make the growth there as well. So there is still opportunities where we are located. It just needs to be looked into more because, again, as I stated, we are not just a middle school. We have young children, and we are growing. We are expanding. And also to take in consideration, we will be sending out pretty soon our invitation to invite new children to join our school because of their school testing. And I would hate to have those sent out and the kids to come and then have to relocate. It is hard to make a school a home, mostly when they're younger. So I just wanted to put that out to you guys from me as well from other parents at the school. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dave.
Mr. Talia, you're up.
We're gonna finish the public comments beforehand, because we already started.
Did you do one for this one as
Yes.
well? Let me see, so that for-
Should say 5C.
Yes, 5C. Jack,
Thank you.
thank you. Sorry.
So I didn't know that those comments were gonna be made, but thank you very much. I had some of the same concerns. If a normal student starts first grade, it's age 6, and you're talking about the original proposal moving 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 over to Mays. A 4th grader would probably be about age 9, 5th grader age 10. And at the middle school, in 7th grade, I got a student, I think I said before, is 14, might turn 15 this year. Might be driving before he gets out of middle school. But anyway, that's a pretty large gap, 14, 15-year-olds with 8, 9-year-olds. And it is not a particular problem specific for Mays, but unfortunately this year that is the experience. As we all know, we've had 3 bond threats this year at Mays. It wasn't at the elementary schools, it wasn't at the other middle school, all at Mays. And if you read the newspaper yesterday, there's a proposal in San Francisco, not enacted yet, to give condoms to middle school students in San Francisco. So think about it. If you got your children or you got your grandchildren and they're 8 or 9 years old on a campus, and we already know what happened on the first bond threat. We lost 270 students in terms of ADA for that day. How frightened are those students going to be? And then if it ever happens, sometimes we're not the leading edge in terms of technology, et cetera, et cetera. But if this is what's happening in San Francisco, and there is a need to distribute condoms, we want 4th graders and 5th graders to be exposed to that. I have no idea how it's going to work. But to me, it's just a bad idea. This is not just a simple parking lot solution where you pave it on over and move the cars around. We're talking about our kids. We're talking about our kids' safety. We're talking about our kids' education. And anything I had to say pales in comparison by a board officer at the AAA. So listen to her. Don't necessarily listen to me, but I have serious concerns.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board. John Talia, Director of Facilities. A small presentation here for you. So at the last board meeting, we had a request from Trustee Baldwin on some specific questions that he asked of staff to come back to the board to provide that information. So I'll go through those questions and answers in this presentation here. So just a reminder of the current and projected enrollment for the AAA. It shows the previous years, 2013-14 at 94 students. This year, we're currently at 138 students and looking at approximately 140 students in the future years. I'll give you a breakdown of what makes up that 138 student count number. There are currently 28 students in the 4th grade, 32 students in the 5th grade, 29 students in the 6th grade, 26 students in the 7th grade, and 23 students in the 8th grade. The specific question asked by Trustee Baldwin at the last meeting was, how many of the AAA students actually live within the Calaveras AAA attendance area? So as you can see, we've done a breakdown for you in regards to the elementary school attendance areas. The map is for your reference as well. But as you can see, 24% of the AAA students live within the Calaveras AAA attendance area, which is the yellow on the upper left-hand side. 16% of the AAA students live in the Sierra Vista attendance area, which is the purple area on your right. 4% live in the Gavilan Hills attendance area, which is the green. 16% live in the Ladd Lane attendance area, which is more the goldenrod color there to your bottom left. 23% live in the R.O. Hardin attendance area, which is the orange. 16% live in the Sunny Slope attendance area, which is the light blue. And there was just a little less than 1% that live outside of those areas. This is a site map of the Calaveras AAA school site. The current configuration, if you recall, there's the 5 classrooms there on your bottom left that the AAA currently occupy. Request from Trustee Baldwin from staff to come back to the board with, well, how much would it cost to install 2 portable classroom buildings, and then how quickly could that be done? Not getting into detail where those buildings might be sat, but I wanted to give you a site map as a reference to give you an idea of potential locations for those buildings. So in regards to estimated costs, and again, we've worked on these dollar amounts with our architects that we're currently working with on other projects throughout the district. Basically, there's going to need to be some site work done. We'll need to tie into all of our major utilities, tie into the electrical grid. The portable classroom buildings would be on wood foundations, so therefore they would not be flush to the ground. They would be elevated, and there would be ramps needed to enter and exit those rooms. I also included a dollar amount for 1 portable restroom building. As we continue adding more and more students to that site, there will be a need for additional restrooms. Obviously, that can be taken out if you were to choose to do that. I will tell you, this is just the wood siding, just your standard basic portable. If you wanted something that looked a little bit more aesthetically pleasing, you'd have to add $60,000 for the siding for the portables and about $15,000 for the restroom building. So as you can see, the cost of the buildings and the cost to install the buildings, you're looking at about $785,000. As typical with our other projects, we have been putting in a 10% contingency for change orders, as well as a miscellaneous contingency. There has been no studies done out in that general area where those buildings could go, so we're not quite sure what we may find if we get out there. And then the percentage of that we've been using for our soft costs, which would be our architectural fees, inspector fees, and so forth. So we're looking at a estimated total of $1.187 million to install the two portables with an additional portable restroom building. Question was, is how quickly can we get this done? Speaking with our architects, if there was a directive from the board to move forward on this immediately, they could start tomorrow on developing construction documents. We would have to work to procure the buildings to ensure that we have enough lead time for them to start building the buildings and they'd be ready for installation over the summer. We'd have to bring this project to DSA for approval, but with the portable scenario where they'd be elevated, not surface mounted, we would not need to go for a permanent type of application. It would be more of a temporary housing application to speed up the time frame to make the summer. Once that would be approved, then we would go back to the DSA for a more permanent status. We have up to 2 years to go back and actually claim or permanent status for those buildings versus a temporary fashion. Once it's approved, then we can put the documents out to bid. So we're looking at early April for that. Receipt of the bids. We have to come back to the board for award of the contract, and again, starting construction the day after school gets out. Funding options for this project. There could be the use of developer fees. The board can take action in regards to the utilization of Measure M bond funds. There's also the possibility of a proposed state facilities bond, where that school site, Calaveras, is eligible for modernization funds, as well as potential Prop 39 local bond measure for this year. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
How much capacity does each classroom or each portable offer?
Well, if we stick with our class size reduction, if those are for the upper grades, it could be anywhere from 28 to 30.
But it's not on the priority list. Thank you.
And I think that goes back to jeopardizing the commitment that we made when we went out to select support for, proposition or
Measure M.
Measure M.
Well,
And stating what we were going to use the funds for.
if I could remind the board, there is the option on the priority list for either a multi-purpose room or 6 classrooms within the district.
Portables. Because I thought that was what we were incorporating into the expansion of the HDLA.
That's correct, with a payback from the developer's fee over a period of time.
But that leaves Calaveras another period of time without a multi-purpose room and service also.
That's correct.
Question?
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Probably should just point it to make sure it's clear. The Measure M bond funds are certainly those that are within our facilities plan and we're designated by the board in a priority list. We have our issuance, our first series, and then our 2 series to follow. The expenditure of the developer fees doesn't fall within the constraints of that. Certainly would be in terms of the general priorities of the board. The expenditure of the bond funds, or the priorities of projects is something that the board establishes, but the expenditure of developer fees is not subject to the limitations of the measure and bond. So just to make sure that's clear.
We have enough funds in developer fees to cover the cost. Anticipating,
I'm sorry?
well, anticipating everything else that we were looking at using some of that money to go towards.
Yes, did you want to speak on that?
Combination of both. So,
We currently have about 2.3 million in development fees. But you have committed some of those dollars to the ELA.
right. Because there are going to be shortfalls from what we were anticipating with certain projects. And we were, because of those shortfalls and adding the air conditioning up on the priority list, kind of shuffled some other things. So I know that's pretty much where the shortfall was. We were going to tap into the developer fees to make up that difference. I know we have a couple more cards on the particular item. Anita?
Thanks, you guys. I spoke at the last board meeting, so I really wanted to wait to hear what Mr. Tulia had to say, and I'm so grateful that you asked him to look into that and that he did so. He's amazing. The one thing that I wanted to say was maybe it's because I don't understand why, but I was curious as to why when it moved from 93 students up to 120 something and then now at 138, why suddenly it's showing leveling off at 140, because certainly that's not the hope, right? The hope is that it will get to keep growing. And so I just think it's nice to point that out. The other thing is, if the move does go to Margaret Mays, the one set of people, because we weren't able to, that we didn't get to ask though, are those who would be incoming fourth graders. So we don't really know, will our enrollment drop off for parents who were like, oh, I was all for it at AAA or at Calaveras, but there's just no way, because they hadn't really seen what the campus was like. I think sometimes when you see how well the AAA students from 4th to 8th integrate and what beautifulness was integrated on that campus by those two administrators, then you feel like, well, we're going to be okay if we move. I just don't really foresee a lot of parents coming in and saying, oh yeah, I'm ready to send my 4th grader to Mays. So that's just something else to keep in mind. The other thing with what Mr. Talia said was that I just want to point out is that R.O. Hardin is still within walking distance to Calaveras. So when you add Calaveras and R.O. Hardin, that makes up 23 and 24 makes up 47% of the students in the AAA, in a sense, are in walking distance. And so that's a huge number. How is that going to be impacted if it gets moved? The last thing was that I sent you guys an email today, and I didn't know if you got it, but did you get it?
We got it.
You got it. It's okay, I know. I'll just read it really quick. It's not 3 minutes. I just want to say thank you for working so tirelessly on behalf of our students. It is obvious that you give 110% to the decisions that you make with regards to students. And with regard especially to moving AAA to Margaret Mays. I know that you've heard and listened to the views, and we're thankful for that. I just want to share with you an actual personal story and a nursing story. So as a parent who has a student who attends AAA, I can tell you it's a huge blessing. When my child attended elementary school, she received straight A's. She always had her nose in a book because she was finishing her work early, and she kept mostly to herself. And there is nothing wrong with that picture. However, when she went to AAA, it was amazing. The very first day she came home beaming, and she's like, Mom, it's so neat. Here, I'm not a nerd. I'm just like everybody else. And I made so many awesome friends today. And she has grown so much in 2 years. And if you'll give me the grace to just give the nursing aspect, I just want you to know every day I see kids who feel lost, misplaced? Where are they gonna go? And the fact is, this AAA program offers that, because sometimes the kids who are in that lost area are the overachieving kids. They're very intellectual. It's hard to make friends. It's hard to fit in. And there are things out there for our kids, things you don't want: drugs, alcohol, gangs. Please keep this program, and please help it to continue to succeed by not moving it temporarily without a plan. Okay, I'm done.
Well, this is one of those unfortunate things that unfortunately, it was the same thing with the expansion, or the thought of expanding the dual language in Gavilan Hills, and the heart and the passion that every site has and their parents for their programs is so evident. I mean, they care so much about our school district and their school and what it means to them. And to me, I think that is what resonates for me personally, because I know that people in each one of our schools care so much about our kids and want the very best. And we as well. But it is, these are one of the hardest decisions we make, is to think about the future growth of our district and what does that look like. Because there's so many uncertainties. There's so much going on that is outside of our control. So with the limited resources, yes, we have a bond, but there was already so many things that filled our plate and then some, that you're trying to juggle what is now more important than something else. And that it's in that you're trying to think, okay, one shouldn't be more important than the other, but it's how we want to move things forward in a very conscientious, meaningful way, so that we don't impact and hurt our students and their programs. But do we have the resources for that when we know we're going to have shortfalls in other areas that we have already made commitments to, that the board has already said, yes, we're going to move forward with that? And that, I think, is what's difficult, is that you're now saying, well, we made a commitment, so how are we going to honor that? How are we going to follow through with that when something else comes up? Because there's always going to be something that is always going to come up. And that's just the unfortunate part of, living with the growth and living with, our buildings the way they are. How do you best serve your students? And is this the best decision? I don't know. I mean, we do have a facilities committee that works so hard and has been working extremely hard since the inception of it. And so you definitely don't want to discredit and take away all of their hard work at looking at all the needs of the district throughout all of this. And so through their hard work, we were able to build that priority list. We were able to be successful in our bond and move things forward because of all of that. So it's trying to just figure out what can we do at this point. Is it best to keep them there and try to make it work, knowing that the expansion is ever growing year after year?
Then you're doing that at the expense of this and of being a priority school.
Yes. Yes, sir.
So I filled out a speaker card. I talked at the beginning on this topic for Mr. Talia. I'm glad for John's presentation. It was a good one. Am I allowed to make another comment since I heard this and it might be relevant?
How would it be relevant, Mr. Barber?
Well, I'll have to explain it.
Okay.
So Dr. McIntyre, please correct me if I'm wrong. But a couple of years ago, Gavilan College came to Hollister and they were looking for additional membership on their Measure E bond, $103 million. They didn't have enough participation. So I signed up. I got signed up for a half of that term. Then I was on for the second part for a second full term. So basically, I was on the Gatham College Measure E Bond Citizens Oversight Committee for 3 years. Now, my understanding, and when I went through those meetings, is that, when they looked at projects, they reprioritized. So yes, you had a priority. Yes, you had Measure M. Yes, you had a facilities committee. And we didn't apologize, or the staff at Gatham College did not apologize when they had to reprioritize as new information becomes available. One of the things that we probably remember in Hollister is that we think we got shortchanged in terms of the Gatham campus here. I came in after the decision was made to spend $8 million on a piece of land across from Ridgemark on Fairview. And I came in after the fact it was already decided to spend over $20 million at the Coyote campus, basically for a police academy. But in the meantime, all the regular meetings, and I would go to the regular board meetings, is that there were changes, there were repriorities. And when we looked at differences, different priorities, as new information became available, the facility committee went back and did some more work. It was a lot longer than the 3 years I was there, and they did the best that they could, and then I got termed out. But my point is, yes, you have a Measure M, and you have a facility, and you had your priorities. And I'm saying now, your priorities may be changing, and that's okay, as long as it fits within the guidelines of the original measure. And my understanding, as Mr. Talia mentioned, and as far as the funds available from Mrs. Cunane, you definitely have that opportunity.
You're correct, but we have an oversight committee.
And I was on the Citizens Oversight Committee for 3 years.
I understand, but we have an oversight committee here that is monitoring what we spend it on and is ensuring that we're spending on things that we committed we said we were. So breaking the trust of our community after they supported the bond is not something that I'm readily just going to say that it's okay, because that's just not, that ethically, that's not something, I'm not going to put something out there and then turn around and lose the distrust of our community. So yes, this is a change, this is a priority, and I'm not minimizing that, but it's on the realm of every other need that we have within the district. So,
I guess we need to just agree with that, but add one point that if the developer fee funds were used and not bond funds, that would fall outside the purview of the bond.
It would. But then, we've also kind of made commitments to those shortfalls that we had coming in on some of the other projects. So we can't lose perspective on what we've committed some of those funds to already. We can't forget that we've said, yes, we are going to commit to these projects, and some of these projects have gone over what we anticipated they were going to go for. And that's before we've even, broken ground. So we can anticipate probably, and John has done a great job with the developers to anticipate the costs going up with the estimates. So we definitely just want to make sure that whatever we're committing to, we're able to pay our bills and finish these projects as we've committed to.
With what Kathy said, we have in developer fees. Just quick rounding of numbers. I don't think there's enough in there to do with the HLA component that we needed to add to that.
Right, there was
Plus this. So we don't have enough. The other thing I was just thinking, okay, so we said we would go to move AAA to another site which has the available space at this time. And in my mind, I was thinking this was going to be a permanent move. And because of the initial thought process that we would move to those 6 little classrooms, and I think Chief Wing it was, maybe we could look at moving them to a different area than, I like that little room, that little Chief Wing. move to another area where we have time to get more developers fees or more bond money to add more portables if we want AAA to grow. Which, you know, I gotta believe that there's gotta be a lot more kids out there that would benefit from that environment than just the 140 that, you know, we're projecting. So I mean, so we have more, I think, more operational issues than theoretical.
Hey, John, could you go to the slide showing the projected population growth of AAA? Please?
Sure.
Thank you. Right there. Okay, we're at 2015-16 with 138. We're gonna go 2 students next year and move them. How's projected growth in Calaveras? Do you know right offhand?
No.
We don't have the information from the demographers yet as to what our community is growing and where. But
The thing is that we do definitely know that we've outgrown that area and that space. So, the demographers is gonna, I mean, it's just gonna give us the idea of where the growth is and what to expect. And so planning is just gonna be as much more critical for, at that point, we're gonna be bombarded with the reality of we're gonna need portables if God only knows how many schools.
Just for clarification, when the facilities committee first looked at the AAA move, there was no talk of the growth of AAA program. Okay, and the 140 is basically a 28-to-1 ratio, 28 students to 1 teacher ratio. So that's where the 140 comes from. And since they were so close to that, that's how we got to the 140 number.
Thank you for clarifying.
Thank you.
it's a rounding issue.
We have potential bond coming up. What's the proposition? Could we buy a year by not doing it?
Is it gonna change things?
I mean, you're looking 28-to-1, 2 students. Could we just buy a year to try to find some money to add capacity? I mean, we've got developer fees, we've got, I'm just trying to come up with something that's.
I wanted to really thank John and Kathy, but also I really want to stress that I know it's a lot of work for those individuals that really put everything together to figure this out. You know, and I totally get what Liz is saying when it comes to the commitments that were made. You know, hindsight's always 20/20, which makes things really, really tough. You know, I offhand, you know, one thing that I hadn't heard that, correct me if I'm wrong, that maybe wasn't considered was how many kids were within walking distance. Like that to me is a huge thing, especially within that community. And with all the things that I had heard, you know, especially from Mr. Bockover and the other lady that's representing the parents, it seems kind of tough to measure that really the negatives seem greater than the positives of moving. And that's just from the math that I've done with what I've heard. So everything that I've heard relates to the stability of the kids, the establishment of an identity that they're to keep, right, that they've already have. Stability relating to the fact that they've already worked things out in a very cohesive manner in the current environment that they're in. So there's relationships are tough to build and they take time. And that was already the groundwork that was laid when they were at AAA, and that's how they basically stayed at a really healthy level, and that's where they've been really successful. For me, the risk is too great, and this is again just me speaking, to move them. I think keeping them would be the obvious, right? But within the framework that they've already been working with, then really there isn't much more to consider that would be negative. You know, you guys already know. But what is there to consider? All these things be thrown out. You know, I'm not much of a gambling guy. You know, even when I've gone to Vegas, I'd rather go watch the show. So as far as I'm concerned, making a decision to move them is more of a gamble than I'd like to make myself.
One more thing I'm sitting here thinking, what happens if we move to AAA and it becomes an epic fail? To Mays, and it becomes an epic fail. If their test scores drop, you just realize that, wow, these children are not ready for this. What do we do at that point? I mean, do we have a repercussion that we could come back and say, whoa, this is, I mean, they went from 20th to 206 in a semester or a year. How do we fix it then?
Well, and, you know, let me answer two questions. You had two in a row here. The first one was, could the board delay the decision of, say, not make a decision or make a decision to not move next year? I don't have an answer to that. I know we don't have the demographic information to support that. I can say that the ground is being broken probably as we speak. I don't know if the tractors moved in yesterday or something, but there's a new project just up the street on Buena Vista. It's a large apartment complex. That won't fill in until next year, but that's underway. You know, with that said, when we asked that question last week at the board meeting, and Ms. White couldn't be here this evening, but her response to that was, yeah, we could probably do that another year. Yeah. That's the only information I have regarding that question. So, you know, I'm just reminding you of what Mr. Reeves is going to do. I know that would be a question for Mr. Reeves. But
he's right there.
He put in his speaker.
Yes, his hand.
So, you know, so there's that. The second question is a hypothetical, and honestly, you know, we can second guess hypothetical questions all night. We just really don't have an answer to those kinds of questions. So.
My Peter said hindsight.
I could be completely wrong.
Mr. Rivas, you can come to the podium.
Members of the board, Dr. McIntyre. You know, listening to all of this and looking at the boundaries, it's, you know, I spoke with Dr. McIntyre on the phone this afternoon, and he asked me, he said, you know, this is the night, speak your feelings, say what you want to say. And, you know, I've been towing the line this whole time. I mean, it's not really knowing what's right. The answer to your question is yes. Calaveras can hold the AAA for another year at a similar capacity in terms of the amount of students in the classes, the amount of space, the book rooms that we're using as offices, etc. Yes, that is a possibility. In terms of, in my own personal opinion, and I don't want to speak for Ms. White since she is unable to be here tonight, but I feel confident when I say this statement of, if we as a whole are making the best decision for the kids, the best decision is to stay at Calaveras right now. If we're looking at it in terms of dollars and the cost of portables and those types of things, then the decision would be to move to Mays. The space is there. I mean, there's no dollar cost in terms of portables and foundations and those types. It really is an amazing feeling. I had the blessing, the pleasure to start at Calaveras and AAA in 2012, right at the tail end, right as the schools were starting to come together. That year, there was still a little bit of animosity between staff and students and whatnot, but that has been 100% rectified. I mean, there's nothing there in terms of that anymore. And going through that, I was working at Gavilan Hills back in 2007, and the HCLA began on the left side of the campus from the way I'm envisioning it right now. It was a hard time. It was not fun. I mean, there were literally people in tears some days. And so when I when somebody brought me the letter that Mays wrote to you all, the board, back in December, I'll be perfectly honest, it was a little deflating. It was a deflating feeling to read that letter and think to myself, is that where I want to take these students next year? Is that where I would want to be? I mean, I would obviously go. I mean, I love these kids. I want to be with these kids. I want to stay with these kids. But, you know, is that something I would want to take them into the fire? Not really. Not something I would want to do. Just because these kids, and you've been on campus before, I mean, these kids are a family. I mean, and not even just the AAA kids, I mean, even with Calaveras, I mean, when there was the heat issue and Peter came to pass out water bottles with the kids, I mean, if you were to ask him, I bet you he couldn't tell which line of kids was the Calaveras kids and which line were the AAA kids coming through to get their water. I mean, you really have a hard time differentiating. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any more questions, concerns, comments? So I call for a motion for the relocation of the AAA to Margaret Mays for the 2016-17.
So moved.
Do we have a second? Guys, for lack of a second, the AAA stays where it's at now. For the next item, possible bond measure for 2016. I definitely need everyone's support because we're not going to be able to do what we need to do in this district without your guys' support. And we need to get that word out to our community. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Measure M was not well supported, except for by the staff and the principals.
So, but definitely, I mean, that's the next item. So hopefully you'll stick around for that part. And we would definitely, we need everybody's support on this moving forward, please. 5D, possible bond measure for 2016. Dr. McIntyre.
Okay, this, maybe this one will be, take a little less discussion, I hope. I don't think there's much doubt, bless you, as to the need. I wonder if there's some feedback. I want to turn my microphone off. I don't think there's much doubt about the need for a bond. We continue, as you've heard plenty of need already this evening, just discussing the needs for Calaveras and the Accelerated Achievement Academy. No doubt that that's a program that's well deserving of facilities and certainly very well deserving of praise for all of its accomplishments. And, you know, as I mentioned last week, the board designated Calaveras School as a priority school, and the prioritization of the facilities is got to be a part of that. So, you know, we could just point to one corner of our community and see tremendous need there. We probably have been seeing the houses going up off of Fairview. That's in our district, and those houses are going up pretty quickly. And so the discussion about the current, or at least the conversation currently about a new bond proposal is really within, in mind, more facilities for our district. You know, I think Mr. Talia will remind me if I might be wrong, but I'm thinking when we did our assessment of all district facility needs about 3 years ago, it was 150 million. Is that what the need was? Including the new school. And costs have been escalating at what rate? It's rhetorical. 50%. It's rhetorical. We began planning for that new school thinking that we would be budgeting something in the order of $25 million. We heard from our architects recently that on the low end, we're looking at a school probably in the order of $40 million, probably much higher than that. So costs are escalating rapidly. Construction costs are going up. So we know that there's tremendous amount of need. Our first bond was a $28.5 million bond. That'll be 3 issuances. We're trying to make the best use, responsible use of that. Developer fees are coming in. They're coming in steadily. And so I think earlier this year I was under, I think I had a figure of 1.6 million in mind of where we stood in our balance. And I think we're up to around 2.3 million. So they're coming in. So, you know, revenue's coming in, but $1 million in developer fees is not going to be the answer to our problem. So we did a recent poll. The results of the poll we heard last week, I don't think I need to reiterate that, but EMC Research conducted the poll of likely voters. I think when I wrote this, I don't think we'd heard those results yet, but this was written for an audience of the board at the time saying, you know, we need 55% support, and the results of the bond clearly suggested that even without any additional information, likely voters were well in excess of 55%. We're in the 63 or 64% range, somewhere near that order. So it's likely that we could do it as long as we get the right people to the polls, right? It's a campaign. So the 2 questions before you this evening are going to be, 1, do you want to place a measure on the ballot? And given what we've heard, it's likely to succeed if we do it right. I would say, given our need, the recommendation would be yeah. And I will be asking for you to take action on that question, yes or no. But yes triggers another decision. The second decision, of course, is when. So we can either go in June or go in November. I'm going to have to continue to do a little bit of rebooting here continually. There's a little glitch. But if we go in June, I want to kind of look at these items. The June ballot, to place a ballot measure on the, or a measure on the ballot in June, is going to require that we do a number of steps. Not necessarily in this order, but all these things have to happen by March 11th of this year, so next month. In order to get something on the ballot, we need to create a detailed project list. We need to create a 75-word condensed version. That the ballot statement, the actual, literally the words that would go on the ballot, would need to be developed. We need to do that in such a manner that we create a statement that clearly communicates to the public what we're asking them to approve. And then we need to make sure that we get that reviewed by bond counsel, because it has to be specifically in 75 words or less, and you can't go over that. So it takes, believe it or not, it takes some work. On top of that, we need to, and I didn't get on this list, but we have to go out and get 4 people locally, might be more than that, but who sign on as people who would support and place this measure on the ballot. So and we need to go out and find our supporters. Cannot be board members, incidentally, so we have to go out and do that. Our financial advisor will have to calculate the tax rate. If we would qualify for roughly, let's just use the figure, $35 million in bonds proceeds in this next go around. If we're going to do that, then we have to calculate what the tax rate would be and be able to disclose that to the taxpayers, and that would have to go on the ballot as well. And then bond counsel has to prepare the order specifications calling for a bond election and order consolidating the election. So all of that would need to be done by March 11th. This is a purposeful, quiet moment. Just think about that. So there's a lot to do. So rebooting again. So let's assume you're going to vote yes, let's do this. Reasons in favor. I probably will be fewer competing items on the ballot in June. Most likely will be. June ballots tend to be less competitive than November ballots. And this is a general election in November, and it's going to be a presidential election. So it'll be probably several measures on the ballot. So it would be in our favor in that regard to be on the June ballot. And as far as other reasons in favor, the sooner we get it approved, the sooner we can start getting money. There's a caveat to that. We've got 2 more issuances in our current bond, so we may not need that money right away, but that would be a potential benefit. Now, reasons that are not in favor of June election is there'd be a greater share of cost. The more agencies that have measures on that ballot, as there would be in November, all those agencies share in the polling costs, the setting up of the polling stations, the printing of the ballots, and all those kinds of things. As I noted, the money may not be necessary right away. Mobilizing a committee in the spring could be a real chore. I'll point out that you'll be busy with the superintendent search. It will be spring. It will be winding down of the school year and getting people mobilized to get out and do a June measure might be difficult. And just a very short turnaround time. All those items I pointed out earlier are still there. So those are some of the drawbacks to a June ballot. And I'm sorry I have to keep rebooting to get this to scroll down. So in terms of a November 2016, there's more momentum. We will have a summer full of projects after this summer. We'll be beginning our hard project. We'll have a project at Rancho San Justo this summer. We've got some work. Gavilan Hills should be underway by then, and our HTLA project will be underway. So they'll be markedly different, and a few other smaller projects that may not be quite so noticeable, but those will be very large projects that should be noticeable to the public, showing that we're doing good work with the bond dollars that we have. So that should build momentum for another bond measure. Of course, it gives us more time to mobilize a committee and get things done. The election costs would probably be fewer or less for us, and more support of the voters in the general election is what our pollsters predicted, that we would probably find greater support for a November ballot, even though there's more competition there. The item tends to be, or the reality is that our polling results, and looking at the history of our community, is that we tend to be more supportive, or more supportive voters who tend to be more supportive of bond measures turn out in general elections. And then, of course, we'd have more time to prepare our project lists and things of that nature. And as I noted, that one drawback would be the several other ballot measures. So, those are the arguments in favor. One way for June, arguments against June, arguments in favor of November and against November. So what I would ask of the board is that you consider the idea of placing the measure on the ballot. If you decide to do that, make a decision. You don't necessarily have to say, put it on November. I mean, you can just simply say, don't go in June, and we'll know what to do after that. But we need to know whether you want to do it at all first. So any questions?
I know we need it. I personally, like I shared those concerns last meeting, was there's going to be competing measures anyways, which are, the high school bond measure. I'm not opposed to putting it, basically to the people, because really that's what it comes down to. They're the ones that decide if they want to serve or not. I think, as a recommendation, I think it'd be a good idea to, because I'm not 100% on that studies, especially since it was a phone. And I remember when the lady was here, she mentioned that she really couldn't put a figure on how many were actual homeowners, right? Because these are the individuals that are really going to front the bill of the bond measure. So again, I'm not opposed to put it before the people, but I just think maybe if there was a different opportunity to try to get a greater consensus, like somehow have a greater communication with the public, especially since we just did a bond measure last year, right? And the need is there. So I guess what I'm saying is maybe if there was a greater way for us to share that need to the public. Otherwise, I'd hate for it to bite us, right? That we don't, and that we put it out there and it completely fails, because we really don't know the heartbeat of the community. 400 likely voters to me is kind of tough to really measure.
I just want to say, being a part of calling and polling ourselves and letting know, we basically sat in Progresso's many nights calling a lot of our voters personally, as employees, as board members, as volunteers, expressing their concern about the ballot. We started that early on so that people were informed. And they were getting it directly from people that were involved in the process. And that is the same ground, we went door to door as well. I mean, this is a huge campaign. This is a commitment on everybody's part that we can't take lightly. So it's going out and educating our community about those needs. We created flyers, but it's the hard work that goes behind it to, promote it and put it out there in the public's eye.
They took a pretty good random sampling too, and with a plus or minus of 4.5%, I think it was. That's a pretty close for 400. That's pretty close.
Yeah, I need to point out that EMC is a very well-regarded polling agency. Statistical sampling is a very well-regarded science. It's they take samples of known voters from the voting roll, so they know what they're doing, and I have great confidence in their sampling. I think they probably select a good sampling. It's becoming more difficult for polling agencies to conduct good polls anymore because fewer people have home phones,
Right.
and so we're phoning people with cell phones, and so they're having to rely on new methods. But I believe that the accuracy and the scientific basis for their sampling procedures is reasonably high. So, the main thing is we need 55%. Anything over 56 is in our favor. So, I could point out, that if we had a great deal of enthusiasm and gusto, we don't have to do necessarily a Prop 39 bond. Prop 39 limits us to the 55% number. If we decided not to do Prop 39, we could go for $60 per 100,000. Our goal isn't to overburden the taxpayers, however. Our goal is to be able to gain the support and trust of our community and ask for them to support our district as we move forward, make sure that we have facilities to serve our students. So I think sticking with the Prop 39 bond, 55% plus a couple votes is what we need, and I think with pretty fair confidence we could say that that's probably what we would get if we did the work. We went out and did the walking of the precincts and knocked on doors and did all the things that we would rather do on weekends with our spare time. So anyways, that's that. Other questions?
Yeah, I totally trust what you're saying, Gary. I really do. To me, it's just, maybe I'm old school, but it's that relationship component. I guess I haven't had too much confidence in polls lately. I mean, technically Donald Trump should even be there, right? Yet somehow he still is. So, I don't know if that's a bad measure, but it's kind of a joke. You know what? But yeah, so my whole point is just honestly, I mean, even just in considering, I shared with you guys recently that we had a little kind of town hall and I'm sitting with the mayor. It's like it would be a good thing for the people to see that there's other agencies that are working together. They see this, this a greater intent to try to really work together and benefit our community. And so when I think of that, I'm like, maybe there was another way to extend this to people to really understand, because, as far as they're concerned, it's just another tax. But to a parent, it's like, I need another classroom. I need another teacher, we need more room for AAA. So it's kind of just trying to create that relationship. So it's, kind of something to ponder. Somehow to create a little bit, basically a bridge, a greater sense of communication with the public. Maybe it's out of ignorance I'm sharing it because I don't know exactly what we already do use. And especially when it comes to a bond, this is my second year as a trustee, so I don't fully know what the avenue is, but maybe that's why, I'm trying to make sure that we're all on the same page.
Anybody else? Okay, so the first question, do we wish to go out for a bond, yes or no? Pat?
Yes.
Peter?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, let me think. Yes. Yes. Okay,
So
do we want to do June?
you want to do a measure? You want to do that by a motion?
Yes, so I make a motion to, let me look back at my agenda. Hold on.
The motion could be as simple as to direct staff to move forward with a ballot measure for a general obligation bond for the Hollister School District.
So. All those in favor? Aye.
Now you can discuss June or November.
So do you want a specific month?
No, you just decide. If you want to do it in June, you need to tell us because we need to know now because we have so much work to do.
Say consensus, June or November?
I'd say November.
Jesus. So.
I know what was involved in
the first one.
Measuring.
Yeah.
And we need the time to get pieces together.
So, then,
I make a motion that we do the ballot for November.
second. All those in favor?
Aye.
A lot of work to do, guys. Last item is item E, is the request for proposals for an executive search firm. We had talked about kind of sitting at the tables and putting things out instead of sitting at the dais, so we can kind of be a little bit more relaxed in this process. Would that be okay with everybody?
That's part of it too. I just kind of go through this one. They want to explain. Yeah, let some chairs set up. Yeah, let's just get some chairs set up over there. And over there, I will take a break. Put some chairs. I'll kind of stay aloof from this if you don't mind.
Sure.
Okay.
You guys moving over there?
Yeah.
All right.
Just make it a little bit more comfortable than sitting up here and going over this.
We'll move the recording device.
Who's already talking about it?
Let's see.
Our administrators, if you would like to stay, you're more than welcome, but you can be excused if you'd like to go.
I think we started off.
You started off with your old
That was far away.
I don't realize I open my eyes. It's so better. I can't ever see the cost for you. Tell you anything. So I know what to think of.
There's different kinds of it's like so.
Yeah, I don't know. It looks like it's got quite a bit shorter. That's accurate. If it starts beeping and screaming,
In the worst case,
yeah. But whatever.
been worked. That's also their
This is the PowerPoint, this is the chart, yeah. Yeah, okay, if we need it.
Something that they control, something like that. Yeah, we don't-
Oh, what happened?
Physical, put yourself in a position you can't pay your bills and do bond and rating games and feel like you're making rash or something. Not so great, yeah, financial decisions that they'll. They can help us.
Yes.
We can talk about, I don't want to.
Yeah, we can talk about it.
Well, I know season's June.
Season's June.
That's right, I remember that one year.
Yeah. I did it my whole life.
I want some.
Sure.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. We receive some for stuff, for people that want to buy. We're, we farm apricots.
How many acres are you coming out?
We own 6, and then my father rents, 5 other parcels that are between 5 and, 8 acres. Yeah. Is that a lot of work? It's a lot.
You know the forest.
We do everything I can. Go away.
Yeah, we can call it there. It's fun for an hour. It's new, it's fun, and it's cut, and then you're at.
Okay.
Open it up.
So there. Pass this out, actually, this just may or may not want to use it, but at least you have a single sort of one page you can look at. But when we sent out the RFP, we informed the companies who might be interested what our selection criteria might be. And this is just a cut and paste of that, just to remind you. So you have on one page, the format, you can see the different kinds of things that the potential candidates want to do. The candidates were told that the size of each was the best there. And then what we did paper screening like jobs, we got that, we just try to get it on one page. You can then look at it and see. So what you have on this one page is the names of the firms who submitted bids, proposals. And you've had a chance to read them except for the last one. Then going the other direction are the exact same criteria that are on this selection criteria page we want to use. And then at the very end, the last column is how you would rank. So one way, I mean, you can decide not to use this at all, it's totally up to you. But one way to think of this is these boxes, like you have Ray and Associates and community engagement, you can talk about together and come up with a number. You can put your own thing, you can put smiley faces, you can put check marks, you can put words, you can put letters, it's whatever you want to do, but in the end, when you would get it all filled out, except for the last column, then you would look at it and say, okay, I'm going to rank this one, my first, my second, my third, and then you go down to the ballot.
Okay, I thought tonight we were trying to, we got a chance to look them all over. And we could decide to interview all of those. Because I think that's what we had.
10 or 12.
Right. Dwindle it down. And from this staff, do we want to accept them all, interview them all, or do we want to remove one for X reason, because it came late, or because it's just over cost, the most expensive one compared to you know, in comparison to the rest.
That's all for you to discuss. The last, just so you know, the last one, leadership associates is the one who called us at that one. They received it in the mail and then I just told them, you're welcome to submit a proposal. I think it's important, no promises. And it's the same, in my mind, it was the same as if you had gotten it on time and decided that you didn't want it. So that's up to you. But if you so decide, you can just scratch that one or keep it in the box of all the others.
They have to be the most expensive, actually, now they're the second most expensive.
And we did, I.
Yeah,
Brand
Brand
Associates.
Associates is the most.
This, this is a bunch of you, but.
Yeah.
So this is yours.
Yeah. No, my only thing is.
We have some printouts of that spreadsheet that shows the cost.
Right, I gave everybody a copy.
You
I
just
got one.
want additional
Oh, never mind, I'm sorry, I just didn't.
with the add-ons.
But it has, yeah, so you have that, so you have the cost. So you have the cost, and then these were just some ideas that we thought might be useful to you over the weekend. The whole hope is that you can have it over the weekend, and you'll be able to eyeball it. See how it. Yeah, it'll help.
Okay. Interview process between 4 and 5.
Yeah.
Not done it on board, but having bid processes. The difference between 4 and 5 is bid. That interview, for some reason, a difference. I don't care if leadership associates is here or not. You know, I haven't got a chance to look at those. But I will say that there's a big difference between 3 and 4 is reasonable. That 5th one, it's a big drawn out thing. Do you have any reason to believe that they really didn't get this until?
No, I mean, they called us, I mean, we don't have any reason to believe that they were lying.
They got it.
Too smoke.
Okay.
No, I don't know, I mean, there's a lot of this work going on. In the RFP, if you will recall, it said that for them, they were told to, if selected, to prepare a 20 to 30-minute presentation. So to do all 5, 20 to 30 minutes plus some question time, figure 45 minutes apiece. That takes you, pretty near 9 o'clock, starting at 5. So,
We should concentrate on.
I agree.
Yes, because.
Let's start with this one.
I don't know that
All right.
California has.
Let's start with leadership.
Let's start with this one, because we want to accept it, since we're basically giving it credit.
That actually was. I think we should accept it, and then we did it, like their choice. I did not give it 1 or 2, but.
I read through it and it didn't stand out to me compared to three other ones.
I didn't even get a chance to
So I was
really
like, yeah.
look at it, since, it was so late in the day.
They service a lot of California school districts.
This one has,
the person they would assign is the former superintendent of Santa Cruz. One of them, I mean, I just happen to know that, says that in there.
They're.
Sounds like unified.
Oh, yeah.
Sort of local.
well, we need a majority. If you want to accept them, raise your hand. If not, we'll just move on. Who wants to accept these guys? Their proposal is to include it, and even if it came in late, they're good ones. Okay, you want to include them? Yes. Okay, so we have a majority. Okay, so they'll be a part of the pile. All right.
Are there any others that we could
I
reject right away?
I'd like to propose to reject Ray and Associates.
I would agree. I would for.
Just in highlighting, they're already so expensive, and then there were additional highlights to costs
Well,
for advertising and.
the estimate. Estimated
Hollister
average.
$100 for faxing?
Yeah, and then the Hollister School District would be responsible for creating
And they
the
don't-
flyer.
And they have the least
And-
California experience.
Right.
And I don't like when these companies come in and say estimated advertising. And that just leaves the door open for a lot of
Right.
escalate, I
Right.
know.
And that was even in their language.
The bond last time, yeah, we had to pay the advertising. Even though we had a consultant, we still had to pay for the creation of indoor flyers and the postcards and the whole design for the Measure M was involved.
I would like to get your input on any of these firms that you've heard of.
I haven't worked with any of these specifically, so basically I haven't, honestly, I didn't go through and read all the bills because that was y'all's job, and so I'll let you do it. I totally understand what you're saying about Gray and Associates there. That was a very enlightening package that they were willing to push all that on to us. Whenever you have a consultant come in, you always end up doing some of the work. So there you really are looking for a group that's going to handle this. If Dr. Hall to put together the flyer, well, we can do that now. So,
Right. Why would we hire you?
and I mean, you'd like to think that somebody would say, look, here, I mean, I could see them coming and saying, here's 5 different flyers, pick one that, these all work, that's what.
Despite the fact that the person, Jacobson, was chosen by the CSBA,
There wasn't really much in their context.
like that was their only
Yeah.
big plus.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna recommend that we eliminate that one too. Personally. Yeah, 'cause and I didn't see any reference. One of the things that I really like about some of them is they have reference letters. And that kind of gives you a little bit more personable. It's not just, hey, it almost gives you a little bit of, they give you, the reference letters to me stood out as something important because they personalize it and give you a little bit more detail as to what the success was. Instead of just saying, this is who we got hired, whether they got fired or not, that's the only thing.
Yeah, and that's what I was disappointed with them, I think,
Yeah, they
because
didn't show
I
much.
sat in the presentation, of them working with the district, and it was very positive. I liked the fact that, they worked with all the different units and the groups in the community, and they seemed to really, get how much part of that process needs to be incorporated in hiring the next superintendent, so, but unfortunately, it wasn't, I mean, I heard it, and so, but it's not reflected here, unfortunately, so it's based on what you are reading. So,
Can we, consider that?
so are we okay with the elimination of McPherson and Jacobson? McPherson?
I'm okay with eliminating them. I don't like these open-ended costs to begin with. Price rate is right there in the middle, but, unless we've heard something outstanding from them. Nothing, I mean, 15 California is its own animal. It really is its own. It might as well be its own country.
And then looking at the districts and who they were in comparison to our district, there really wasn't really much of a comparison. They were all very big districts in areas, more athletic areas.
Was that McPherson?
Yeah, the ones in California that they were.
I mean, they really only had about half a dozen that had our, ADA.
Yeah. Yeah, the one.
I mean, they have lots with,
Benicia Unified is 5,000 students. Paso Robles, 6,500.
but that's
Those were the
in
only two.
California.
Yeah, well, they're California got the list of the ones they worked with.
Yeah.
Back here.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's about the only
In our
ADA.
ADA, yeah.
Yeah.
But everybody's gonna be looking for the best. Superintendent they can get.
Yeah, but if they pulled from a lot of population in that 5,000, 6,000 range, they're going to know they've already done a lot of the research on a lot of the superintendents for population pay
Districts that
grade.
size.
Yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely.
No, they're not coming in. I should have.
Okay,
So, and they ranked fourth in California experience. So we dropped the bottom two in the California experience. And that put ourselves in a position to now look at three, all relatively close in the California experience.
I had a thing that I really liked about,
Education Leader Services?
The,
Yeah, ELS.
yeah, Education Leadership Services. When they come from the experience. They said that they were the only ones that said that they were going to do a salary comparison for the superintendent position. They have followed up leadership workshops. They have USC connections, you know, good university and connections with the school for superintendents. And,
Did they state who we were gonna be working with? Or is it just the two that pretty much Mr. Dr. Chung and, Dr. Cruz?
yeah, I think they're
And Dr. Cruz is from the valley,
Yeah,
so he's familiar with our, you know, our demographics.
I think
and
so.
Our challenges with, you know, coming from Fresno County.
I like all the leadership training, supervisors.
the leadership associates.
I mean,
They have, I didn't get the marks.
does Gary know these if you want?
I haven't talked to him about it. He's saying,
The ones that,
Yeah.
I mean, he did have input in, who we sent out letters to, you know,
Okay.
specific firms.
Okay.
And we contacted based on his knowledge of them and, you know, their reputation, so, at that point, I know that we did target some of those.
I think 9, 8, 9, I'm not sure how many letters we sent out.
9.
9. And former superintendent, I just happen to know, worked for one that didn't respond, just said that they were just too busy. And because they are, unlike some of these, they're relatively small. You see a list of names here. Those people are typically retired superintendents. They don't have time to be running 5 different things at once. They're basically working for one school district when they take on these contracts.
We're gonna have a lot of special board meetings.
Oh, yeah.
When I was at that training last weekend, the one thing I just kept getting out, this is the most important decision we'll make as a board, saying. That's why we look at the best and brightest, that's the term, best and brightest. Closest.
There was one of them that said that they
Or
wanted
willing to
to take care of all the
They personally.
arrangements for their site visits, you know. And then
It just depends on how you.
the leadership associates asked them to make.
Invest in this community.
I don't know, they can't make us go to their current site and interview.
I saw that in some of the packets.
What's that?
Going to, if we couldn't, you know, the fact that, okay, to save costs, doing Skype, you're doing all these other methods of.
Oh, yeah, I saw that.
Of interacting, I guess, with one another and.
That was
There's
to
a
cut
total
costs.
time on this district and
Because they actually wanted, if we, once we selected the finalists, for us to go see where they live.
yes, it's their work. I didn't see where that would be uncomfortable.
Is that
So
common?
it's pretty common. You're talking about going to the superintendent's home district.
Yeah.
It's pretty common practice.
Really?
Yes, and
good company like this will coach you on how, you wouldn't all go because you've only two people, but a good company will coach you on how to do that, and we talk with you, you go talk with the board members. At that point, of course, it's not a secret at that end. And, you know, it's, what you want to hear, of course, is you don't want this person to leave and get lost and all that sort of thing.
Get lost.
But actually, I've never heard of board members being, you know, treated in any way that would make them uncomfortable. This is all for the kids. But it is a very common practice.
I feel repeat. I never, unless I have their permission to talk to their president. Because you don't know what kind of onus it puts on the person.
Certainly have the candidate permission to do this.
Right.
Absolutely not about that.
And you're digging, I mean, this is, from what I was looking, they're digging deep back, I mean,
I don't want to.
extension of not just references, but references of references of references
I don't want this high school,
going.
what just happened at the high school. I've got a case coming up.
Typically, would only do that kind of a visit for your one final candidate. That's not something you can say, okay, I've got 3 people. I'm one of the superintendents who basically said, if I'm not your final candidate, you're not coming, take me off of this. But if you're pretty sure about that candidate, it's not so much to make the decision when you make those visits as it is to just understand where that person's coming from.
I think with this one, it's just knowing who are the people that we're going to be working with, because I know with some of the other ones, it's very specific. The group, you know, the 2 individuals or however many that you're going to be working with directly and building that relationship, so that your concerns and everything that's being spoken, whether it's amongst us or in the community, is all being relayed within that same filter. So, you know, if it's coming out and presented, it's all the way the expectation that we want from that information. So, you know, because if you've got several people, I think that was the only with this leadership, they have quite a few partners and associates
designated who would be
already. What's their percentage of retention? 85?
The first 2,
85% have remained in their positions for more than 5 years.
They didn't, this one's, I didn't pick up on
Franklin, McKinley, Carmel, wow. We're very different areas. San Bruno, Palo Alto.
No, geographically.
I'm sorry?
Geographically, those kids
Geographically, but
are
demographically,
demographically. So
oh, our firm has selected Sally Fraser and Dawn Iglesias will be our lead consultants.
I didn't remember that they said that they would work with us to include the community in what they thought was valuable.
That to me.
it's on that page right there.
Which one? This one?
This one, I did scan that one because it showed up today.
Right
We
here.
talked about it.
So everybody was going to do
Mhm.
community engagement.
They all-
Get better resources than others.
I mean, I noticed that all of them pretty much say if you do these things. So it's kind of hard to distinguish them.
Depend a lot on how they present themselves.
Yeah.
And this firm only works in California, right? Leadership Associates.
This one.
So, you know.
Well, thank you.
If you're gonna be a part of this process, you let me know how, okay? I would love to, okay? I like the letter, I mean, I just impacted me personally, seeing those letters and their recommendations and how they work personally with each district. Thank you.
Clean up. Or I can write down the first and second and stuff. I don't know when to let all this other stuff.
Well, what we've done is we got down to 3. I just want to interview the 3 and see what our feelings are from there.
I would like to do that.
Yeah, it's gonna
I
be
think
hard.
three is
'Cause
doable.
this is too,
There's so much overlap. I'd like to get their
They're all
personal
gonna
flavor of.
blow smoke at us through this and it's
this
really
is a
hard. to-
sales pitch.
Right.
Mhm.
What kind of bond can they create?
Sell yourself. Okay, how can we, yeah, I agree. I think instead of debating here and going through every little check mark,
And
we could dissect it now that we know.
and we
we're
can
gonna
rate it 1 to
be
3, but it's still 1 to
Looking
3.
forward, now that we have specific questions for each individual ones, or doing our own comparison, we can move towards that. But, and doing all 3 is doable.
So I've read through all these too, and I agree with it. Like, it sounds really, really good. Like, I already have one that's like my favorite, but I could be completely wrong because I don't really see them in person and know that.
Well, that's why we'll take that into consideration next week. And they've all committed to being able to have a presentation.
That was part of the RFP, so they started exactly starting at 5, so what we would do is schedule, I don't have any particular order, but anyway, we schedule 1 at 5, schedule 1 at, 6:15, and I mean, 5:45, like that, and every 45 minutes is basically what we would do, and they're, unlike when you selected board members and so forth, I don't know, I mean, it's totally up to them, they can listen in, but from my understanding and talking to different people, it's very rare. They usually sit out there, it's professional courtesy, they're not sitting in the audience while you're hearing the other.
Sure.
And if they would choose that, then that might be part of your consideration. They would just sit there and put some time to be there. Just go get them and bring them in, and
Give them each their.
when we start.
I don't want to say just give them an hour.
Well, for us to have Q&A every week. Do we discuss that as well that night as far as who we're going to be selecting?
Yes,
That
you
night?
do that in listening session, and you decide, basically, that's your last item that evening, and then you just round table and have a discussion. They're not sitting there, I mean, they can if they want, but they probably won't, and then you notify them. But yeah, if you, I just need to know if you want them every hour, we can schedule 1 at 5, 6, and 7, like that, and then that gives you time in between. Sometimes it's better to, by the time you're done 1 at 7, it's close to 8 o'clock, and how much you take good notes and stuff. If you want, we can put together what I'm not really sure, but we can brainstorm some ideas and just have some things for you to be considering and thinking about. I think the main things are these selection criteria or what they speak to. There's only 3 of them. There really isn't a need for any fancy paperwork. I think everyone can keep in their head which one they like first, second, and third, and just write that down. That's really, at the end, in the best possible world, it's like, okay, motion. Someone says number 1, and everyone says, yep. And if not, then just, the follow-up services are something that I think would be an important thing you really understand. how they're gonna involve the community is an important thing. And they're gonna take some direction from you, so they may very well ask, you can listen to it for that. Typically, superintendents are not interviewed in public the way we interview a principal or something like that, where everybody, typically the board interviews superintendent candidates. The public has input in the sense of telling the search firm what kinds of people that they feel like they would like, and the board knows that. But if the board were to hear some criteria that they felt like was just coming from a limited section of the population, maybe they can say, well, that it is important, whatever. That's all part of the relationship that you build with this firm. But then you have, they set those interviews up, and that often goes pretty smoothly. But then the post-result is a really important issue by the superintendent. Superintendent kind of a lonely job, and so it's nice for that superintendent to know that he or she has somebody they can call up who's that can help them get hired, but they're also fully tied. So that's something that is beneficial for the district and ultimately for the students. If something that they know that they can call. Although lots of them have vast networks. And another thing, of course, would be the timeline. I don't know what you're thinking. You may not have any thoughts in your mind at the moment, but when they're there and talk about how long this takes and so forth, that will help you maybe to decide. Just given everything else.
I know being on the, one of the committees for the high school superintendent, there were two basically they put together 2 interview groups. The board did, of course, their interview by themselves with the superintendent, but then they built this other group of people from community members. You had your classified, you had your union, you had your principal, a VP, so it made up a very variation of people. And then we had specific questions, right, that we were asking the candidate, and then from there, that candidate transitioned, and we selected, okay, once we did all the questions, which one's your number one? And basically you would write, the board, you had a little questionnaire, and then you'd make your comments, and basically your packet then went to the board. Because they wanted to know, coming from this committee, what is your take on this person? What did you get from that? And so from there, that person then went to just the board and was interviewed privately in their closed session right after. So it is pretty intense, but hey, if they can, and I think that's what a lot of them you could see, they were just, if they couldn't deal with that pressure, it was going to be tough. It was going to be tough. And there were a lot of candidates that just folded. They just, what you thought they were going to answer and they were going to be prepared, they just weren't. So, but.
I like that idea. I'd like to see maybe a parent segment, because I think there's input they could definitely give it, all stakeholders. So.
Yeah, so that, like I said, that makeup, and it could be however many, because there was quite a few questions that panel asked every single candidate. So it's just another take on, feeling like you're part of the process, especially at that end game when you're looking at just the ones that you're coming in to interview. So it's important, because this is going to affect everybody in this community. So we definitely want all those stakeholders at the table, kind of getting a flavor for this person coming in.
And that's what's hard about these deals, because everyone says they're going to get stakeholders involved. Exactly how, they don't explain.
Yeah, that's what we need to understand, because some of them will do it by bringing data back to you.
Right.
And then you're the only interviews, others will do it by involving, creating focus groups, interview panels and whatnot. And that's all, and that depends on you. I know that, there are some groups that, if, we just say that they don't do that at all. We do the board, because that's right, that's what's the most important decision by the board. It is the board's decision. The superintendent doesn't really work for the community, he or she works for the board. And so that's one way to look at it. And that's, again, that's something to ask them quite directly if you have that model.
Because we didn't say that in the RFP. We said in the RFP was the opposite. Tell us how you might do this sort of thing. And we'd like to go from there. But they can certainly recommend how to get it done. And, it's like, well, if you say this group, for example, says, well, you feel like the board did interview and so on and so forth, they'll have good reasons. I mean, a major reason is they can't. Being the superintendent, you're a superintendent in a district now, and you're looking to be a superintendent. You don't want your board to really know that until you're ready to tell them. And so then if you go out and you don't get that job to come back, you don't have, but if it's very difficult to maintain confidentiality when you have the largest group. You want to keep secret, don't tell yourself. Don't tell someone else, it goes. And so it. And
we also have to sign the confidentiality.
I mean, yeah, yes, and.
Oh, that's, some of these were actually requested.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's all kinds of pieces, and that's just really.
At that level, you would have.
Hard. But I think, there's lots and lots of questions. My understanding is, just to reiterate, so we'll schedule them an hour apart. Even though they've got a 20 to 30 minute presentation, it'll be an excellent learning opportunity. The question you'll ask will be to educate yourself about the whole process just as much as it will be to sort of sift through the candidates and decide, okay, do I like this one or that? Okay, great.
Sounds good. An hour is a good amount of time. Honestly, if you can make it through the first 45, that's probably pretty good. There's not so much you could say, right? I mean, after 45 minutes, I imagine they'll probably get long-winded with some of their stuff.
Just start banning.
Exactly.
Well, you can schedule them for, the other thing, is the person comes in and they're done after 40 minutes and they leave and the other people are waiting. They complain about having to go 20 minutes.
Sooner, yeah. Mm-hmm.
One person now that just scheduled for 5 o'clock. Trying to get in some
20
That's their responsibility.
It is. Come on. You too.
That
Nice.
is nice.
It is big.
Be
here on time.
Yeah.
You're here on time.
Especially for something like this.
It's important.
Your business, your reputation.
Okay, but if you look at, online.
Yes.
Important.
Becoming more of a better community than it is so far. Yes, we're losing. You are. Sorry. Okay, sorry. Got lost. Okay, can I get a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I will motion to adjourn.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned. Sorry, it's just.
Go home, I gotta work.
Oh, yeah.
I got in
Your
it.
favorite job. What are you doing? I only slept 2 hours today.
I got in at 5:30 this morning. At 8:30, I was back at work.
Are you kidding?
I went home.